The US slapped Canada and Mexico with tariffs. But what happened next was unexpected. China and Canada hit back hard, and the consequences are shaking North America's economy. What makes it even more interesting is that China and Canada are retaliating immediately, and they are doing it in a big way. In this video, we'll break down how China and Canada are hitting back against US tariffs and the serious impact this is having on the American economy. If you enjoy deep dives into global trade conflicts, make sure to subscribe. Now let's explore how these tariffs are driving a wedge between North American countries. Canada, known for its diplomatic approach, found itself at a crossroads. The idea of being labeled a national security threat by the US sparked disbelief and outrage. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the tariffs totally unacceptable, prompting Canada to take an unusually aggressive stance, announcing $107 billion in retaliatory tariffs, starting with $20 billion in targeted goods. The impact was immediate. The steel and aluminum industries, already vulnerable to market shifts, faced rising uncertainty. US manufacturers relying on Canadian metals struggled with higher costs, threatening jobs and competitiveness. Meanwhile, Canadian tariffs hit American exports like pork, cheese, and whiskey. The auto industry, a cornerstone of North American trade, was thrown into turmoil, with manufacturers warning of severe disruptions. Automakers warn that tariffs could drive up vehicle costs by as much as 25%, hitting consumers hard. Vehicles and parts crossing borders became subject to new levies, disrupting supply chains meticulously crafted over decades. This sector is now faced with the daunting task of recalibrating operations amidst the escalating trade tensions. Yet, the most intriguing development lay in Canada's contemplation of leveraging its vast energy and natural resources. As the United States imposed a 10% tariff on Canadian energy imports, discussions emerged within Canadian political circles about utilizing these resources as a strategic countermeasure. The prospect of adjusting energy exports introduced a complex layer to the dispute, intertwining economic strategy with geopolitical considerations. The justification for the US tariff measures rooted in national security sparked extensive debate. Critics argued that the invocation of the IEPA in this context was unprecedented and questioned the legitimacy of labeling a long-standing ally as a security threat. This rationale not only strained diplomatic relations, but also set a contentious precedent in international trade practices. Canada's departure from its usual negotiation style can be attributed to the abruptness and severity of the US actions. The sweeping nature of the tariffs, coupled with the national security justification, left little room for traditional diplomatic discourse. In response, Canada adopted a more assertive stance, signaling its readiness to protect its economic interests and uphold the principles of fair trade. Canada has long been recognized as an energy powerhouse, a fact that has only grown more significant in recent years. The nation supplies vast amounts of oil and natural gas, especially to its neighbor, the United States. With US refineries optimized for Canadian heavy crude, a type of oil that has distinct properties compared to lighter grades, any disruption in the steady flow could trigger cascading effects throughout the energy sector. When Trump's tariffs threatened to upend trade, speculation grew that Canada might strike back by leveraging its energy exports. For the first time, Canada considered using its energy dominance as a weapon, an unprecedented move that would directly challenge the US in a geopolitical confrontation. But this strategy came with major technical and logistical hurdles. US refineries, built for Canadian heavy crude, rely on a precise balance of inputs to stay efficient and profitable. A sudden disruption wouldn't just cause bottlenecks. It would force costly reconfigurations or a scramble for alternative feedstocks. Meanwhile, the vast natural gas pipeline network linking the two countries, developed over decades of cooperation, would face similar disruptions, making an energy standoff a risky gamble for both sides. In the short term, any drastic move by Canada to halt or reroute its energy exports to the United States would undoubtedly inflict economic pain on both countries. The immediate consequences for Canada would include a loss of revenue and potential instability in its domestic energy markets. as the nation would have to adjust its operations quickly to find new buyers. In addition to this, the technical challenges of such a transition are formidable. Shifting supply chains from North America to distant markets entails navigating complex issues of transportation, storage, and the adaptation of export facilities to meet different quality standards and regulatory requirements. Moreover, international trade agreements and geopolitical alliances play a crucial role in determining how easily such a transition can be executed. Canadian energy companies would need to negotiate new contracts, often in a highly competitive environment where price volatility and market uncertainty are constant companions. While Canada is well known for its oil and gas, its true strategic strength lies beneath the ground. The country holds an immense reserve of critical minerals, rare earth elements, nickel, lithium, and uranium. While the world focuses on oil disputes, Canada's mineral wealth remains an underappreciated yet formidable economic and geopolitical tool. Canada is even aiming to beat China in the rare earth metal race. The demand for these minerals has surged in recent years. The rise of electric vehicles has made lithium and nickel more valuable than ever, as they are key components in the batteries that power Tesla cars and other EVs. Rare earth elements used in everything from smartphones to fighter jets have become a global battleground, with China holding a near monopoly over supply. Meanwhile, uranium, critical for nuclear power and military applications, places Canada in a unique position as one of the world's top producers. In an era where nations are scrambling to secure stable sources of these materials, Canada is sitting on a goldmine. You see, for decades, the United States has been heavily reliant on foreign sources for critical minerals, with China dominating the supply chain. This dependency has raised alarms in Washington, especially as tensions between the two superpowers continue to rise. Any disruption in the mineral supply could send shockwaves through the U.S. economy, crippling major industries like tech, defense, and automotive manufacturing. A sudden shortage of lithium and nickel, for example, could slow down EV production, affecting companies like Tesla. Similarly, limited access to rare earth elements could impact the development of advanced weapons and semiconductors. As North American trade relations deteriorated, China entered the fray, intensifying the global trade war. In early 2025, tensions between the United States and China reached a boiling point. On February 1st, President Donald Trump imposed a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports, effective February 4th. Just a month later, on March 3rd, he doubled down, announcing an additional 10% tariff under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, citing national security threats and efforts to combat fentanyl trafficking. China wasted no time in responding. In retaliation, Beijing rolled out a series of countermeasures, striking at key sectors of the U.S. economy and signaling that it would not back down in the face of Washington's aggressive trade policies. China swiftly imposed a 15% tariff on U.S. chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, while also placing a 10% tariff on sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, aquatic products, fruits, vegetables, and dairy. The energy sector was not spared, with China enforcing a 15% tariff on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas, alongside a 10% tariff on crude oil and agricultural machinery. Additionally, China expanded its unreliable entities list to include 10 more U.S. companies, effectively restricting their operations within Chinese markets. These countermeasures had immediate economic repercussions, particularly for U.S. agriculture. The newly imposed tariffs led to a substantial decline in U.S. grain prices, with wheat dropping by 17%, corn by 9%, and soybeans by 8% in just 3 weeks. The market downturn raised concerns about a supply glut and placed additional financial pressure on American farmers. The energy sector also faced instability as China's tariffs on U.S. coal, liquefied natural gas, and crude oil disrupted established trade flows and led to price volatility in global energy markets. Meanwhile, U.S. companies targeted by China's regulatory actions faced operational risks, increased compliance costs, and uncertainty over their future in one of the world's largest markets. The broader geopolitical implications of this trade dispute were significant. The tit-for-tat tariffs deepened the divide between the two nations, reducing the likelihood of a near-term resolution and escalating diplomatic tensions. The uncertainty introduced by the trade war affected global investor confidence, creating ripple effects throughout international supply chains and threatening global economic stability. China also initiated legal proceedings with the World Trade Organization, WTO, against the U.S. tariffs, signaling a prolonged legal battle that could further strain the multilateral trading system. As trade tensions intensified, countries around the world began reassessing their economic alliances, potentially leading to a shift in global trade blocs and altering the geopolitical landscape. With both China and Canada striking back, the U.S. faced mounting economic pressure. But beyond trade wars, these tensions pushed Canada to rethink its global alliances. The long-standing economic partnership with its southern neighbor was beginning to show cracks, with tariffs and trade disputes threatening the stability of a relationship that had defined North American commerce for generations. But Canada was not about to sit idly by. Instead of merely retaliating, it chose a different path, one of diversification. The country recognized that its economic future could not rest solely on the whims of a single trade partner, no matter how powerful. Looking outward, Canada sought to build new bridges, strengthening its economic ties with Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. Agreements like the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, with the European Union and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, became more than just trade deals. They were strategic moves in a high-stakes global chess game. These agreements gave Canada access to massive markets, reducing its reliance on U.S. policies. Through CETA, Canada secured preferential trade with over 500 million consumers in the EU, while the Trans-Pacific Partnership opened doors to dynamic economies like India, Australia, and Vietnam. Yet shifting trade alliances was no simple task. You see, the United States had long been Canada's dominant trade partner, absorbing roughly 75% of its exports. While deals with the EU and Asia held promise, they required time to develop. In addition to the Canada-US relationship, other nations were watching closely. If Canada could successfully diversify its trade without significant economic damage, it might encourage others to follow suit. Countries heavily reliant on the United States, such as Mexico or South Korea, could explore similar strategies, leading to a larger rebalancing of global trade. The trade war was not just an economic battle. As the United States clashed with its closest allies, internal divisions within the country deepened. Trump's America First policy had been designed to project strength, prioritizing domestic industries and forcing trading partners to accept new terms. But the strategy had unintended consequences. The very industries it was meant to protect began to suffer. Tariffs on American soybeans, pork, and dairy products hit hard, with exports to China and Canada plummeting. In industrial states like Michigan and Ohio, auto companies warned of potential job losses, adding pressure to an administration already battling dissent within its own party. Business leaders voiced concerns, economists raised alarms, and opposition politicians seized the moment, framing Trump's trade war as reckless and damaging. Meanwhile, in Canada, the trade war had an entirely different effect. What began as economic retaliation quickly evolved into a unifying national cause. Canadians, regardless of political affiliation, rallied behind Ottawa's firm response. In essence, Canada's strong response sent a message to future U.S. administrations. Trade relationships could not be taken for granted. Any successor to Trump would have to navigate a new reality, one in which Canada, once seen as a reliable and compliant partner, had proven its willingness to push back. This trade war is reshaping global alliances. The question is, who will come out on top? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss any further updates. See you in the one.